I'm Terry Sacka, and this is Rigged Against You. Today, we're going to discuss the dollar's orchestrated collapse. Now, this isn't just a standard podcast about dollar collapsing. You're going to want to watch this one. This is literally the best wealth transfer opportunity in almost the last 50 years. And when you see what I'm going to explain, you'll understand why President Trump knows exactly what he's trying to do. We just need to get everybody on board, but you're going to want to watch this one. This is going to be a good one. I'm going to fill in the details of what really is the plan. And I think when you see it, you'll understand this opportunity is real. Before I get going, please consider subscribing and hit the bell. I don't do too many podcasts, but when I do, you'll be emailed and notified. And this type of podcast anyway is really good information for wisdom and understanding for how to position yourself for what really is in front of us. So we hear the word reset. We talk about the Great Reset. There's many components to the Great Reset. We talk a lot about crypto, digital, where this is going. But today we're going to discuss a few things. We're going to discuss a little bit about what this reset really means for the United States. We're going to talk a little bit about the tariff, the Plaza Accord, which was done in 1985, the Lago Accord, which you're going to want to understand because this is the game plan, crypto, and then who and what will benefit for this great wealth transfer. This is going to be absolutely fantastic. But let's get into a little bit of history. Hang into this because you're going to want to get towards the end when you see where this is going on the digital platform side. But we need to put it in context, so the history will be really important. So let me go here and start it off this way. And I'm going to have to do a little bit more than that. That'll be better. So from where it comes in, the Bretton Woods. Now, Bretton Woods, this was a financial agreement that goes back. It was established in 1944. This was during a conference in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, where representatives from 44 countries created a new international monetary system. This system pegged currencies to the U.S. dollar, which was in turn backed by gold. Now, we know that changed, right? Now, let this formation take place. As the formation took place, it also funded and created the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Interesting stuff. Bretton Woods was the beginning of this. Bretton Woods was what we've been operating on. So that's why you know the United States dollar as the reserve currency. Now, when they established that backed by gold, they realized that had to change. And of course, in 1970, we came off that gold standard and they were able to print the fiat paper currency into the stratosphere. Why today, the dollar that was originally created back in the 1913 used to buy $1 worth of goods. Today, your dollar has about 4 to 3 cents of the same buying power and value. That's why everything is so expensive. And they keep saying, yes, our incomes are higher, so it's okay, but it's not. There is a real big difference here. Now, when they came off the gold standard, they started to print a lot of currency. This was in the high inflation that we saw in the 70s. It's going to sound familiar when you see what's going on today, right? So the Bretton Woods was the initial agreement after World War II that made us the reserve currency. Then they created something called the Plaza Accord. The Plaza Accord was designed to push the dollar down. The problem is this has failed. So let me bring in a little definition of the Plaza Accord to help you. The Plaza Accord was a 1985 agreement among 5 major economies. This was the French, the Germans, United States, the UK, and Japan. It was aimed to really depreciate, bring the U.S. dollar down to address trade imbalances. Signed on September 22, 1985, it led to a significant decline in the dollar's value. Now, this is a very important thing to know. The Plaza Accord, because the dollar was very strong at that time, and the Plaza Accord was designed to bring down the dollar value relative to the other currencies that were in line and pegged to the US dollar. Now, the Plaza Accord has pretty much failed. We have now run the course of the depreciation of that dollar value, and this is why most of our manufacturing and our jobs left America and went overseas. We have been printing so much currency that the value of our dollar isn't there anymore. And so that's why everything is so expensive, why we need high labor wages just to survive. COVID alone increased things like rent and such 300%. And it's not coming back down, unfortunately. But listen to what is going to happen. This gets very interesting. Because the Plaza Accord has failed, most of our manufacturing base has left America. Our jobs leaving America because our wages are too high. We can go to China, we can go to other countries and get products made for pennies on the dollar. And so we started this great migration away from we the people and destroying our ability to create wealth. Now, this is where it gets interesting on the plan, because coming next is the Mar-a-Lago Accord. Now, remember what I said about the Plaza Accord. Its purpose was to bring down the dollar, which it did. It dropped the dollar value over 30%. Which was pretty significant, which allowed our exports to become attractive, and why we were able to then create manufacturing jobs and have really good paying wages for we the people. But then walk in the Plaza Accord. And this is the part I like right here. I mean, I'm sorry, the Mar-a-Lago Accord. Now, the Mar-a-Lago Accord, I could get deeper in this, but I'm trying to keep this podcast short. It was designed. It was written before Trump became president. And actually, the man who wrote it is actually in Trump's cabinet now. So this ought to tell you something. They are doing the Mar-a-Lago Accord now. It was called Mar-a-Lago because this is where it was thought up. And this was the grand plan. So when we talk about Great Reset, Trump knew we needed a new reset to our currency and financial state. Now, we can't just do it solely on the fiat paper, because we also have the digital part of it, the crypto part of it, that is going to bring in the rear. But the Mar-a-Lago Accord is very interesting. It is proposed, and this, I love this part right here, the Mar-a-Lago Accord here. It is proposed economic initiative from Trump administration aimed at restructuring global trade and monetary relations. And if you notice, that's all he talks about. Primary mission of the Mar-a-Lago Accord: devalue the US dollar and lower interest rates. Now you kind of see where this is going. We devalue the US dollar, lower interest rates. That is a perfect storm for gold and silver. Why you are seeing gold and silver at new highs, why silver is broken through its high, in the highest it's been now in 13 years. And it's just continuing. So for many people who think silver, oh, it's too late, I missed it. People are amazing how they make their decisions. They're always too late and too early. But silver is going to $150 to $300 an ounce. It just is. But in the meantime, there's going to be other consequences if you're not properly invested. Why I'd be giving Cornerstone Asset Metals a call. Start the conversation. Right now, you're buying silver in the low 40s or around 40. It is inexpensive compared to where it's going. But the main mission of the Mar-a-Lago Accord is to lower the dollar value. And that's why you hear Trump putting pressure on lowering interest rates. Now, this is all going to be happening while maintaining the status of the world reserve currency. It seeks to reduce the U.S. trade deficit, which we have seen unbelievable reduction. We have literally cut the trade deficit in half. Think about that. Now, granted, it's tariff related, but by half, we have cut that trade deficit. That is a phenomenal accomplishment in just the first 4 months of Trump presidency. But by reducing the trade deficit, we restored domestic manufacturing. If you've noticed President Trump's trips, he has already secured multi-trillion-dollar investments to come back to the United States for manufacturing. He is really, truly making America great again. So these multi-trillion-dollar investments that he is securing from other nations will be building manufacturing facilities here. Why tariffs were so important. I'm not going to get into the deep depth of tariffs, but believe me, most of the mainstream and what you hear from other countries, it's just not true. Tariffs are way we should have been making our money all along. That's why President Trump talks about the external revenue service instead of the internal. We should be going after people that owe us money, and we should be making the revenue for our nation through tariffs. Now, what it's doing is forcing these nations to now bring manufacturing back to the United States. This is the important part. It restores our manufacturing through measures like the tariffs and linking trade agreements to national security. Pretty interesting stuff, isn't it? Now, I want to show you where this is on a chart so you'll kind of understand. A lot of people think, well, the dollar is so strong and this is not going to happen. And I know, but they don't understand that behind the scenes, the media is rigged against you for information. So many people are in the stock market. You're not going to even come close to outperforming what silver and gold will be doing over the next 18 months. There's no doubt about that. But take a look at this chart here. Now, this is the DXY, it's the dollar index. Now, I'm going to put this in context so you can kind of understand, because if you see back, this was probably back in the 80s, around 85, when the Plaza Accord came in, that's on the left side there where you see that yellow circle. The dollar was really, really strong. And so they put in the Plaza Accord there, and look at how much the dollar devalued. And then we kind of went sideways for a while, but then the dollar started strengthening again in the early 2000s. If you notice conveniently, that was around 9/11. That's another conversation. But then, of course, from that moment, it brought the dollar way down. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say these events are linked, but I'm telling you, there's a pretty high probability that's what it is. And then if you come across, we've been going sideways on the dollar value, and look to the right where the dollar is. If you look at the dollar chart this way, you're going to say, well, the dollar is really not that strong, so this doesn't make sense. The Lago Accord doesn't make sense. We're at around 199 on the DXY index, but let's look at it from a different perspective. Now, this one is the US dollar real effective exchange rate. This is the one you pay attention to. If you notice here on the left, the yellow circle, that was during the Plaza Accord. And look in the middle there. Do you see the dotted broken black line? That is known as the means. That's kind of the average. That's kind of where the goal would be, per se. But when you see the Plaza Accord was initiated, there was an overshoot. And so we shot way below the means into the 70s. Now, anytime you go below the mean, it will come back up eventually, and that's what you saw in the early 2000s. And then we crashed again, and then look at since 2011, when we had the real high gold and silver prices for the first time anyway. Look at the dollar value since then. The exchange rate is almost as high as the time of the Plaza Accord. Right now, the yellow circle on the right, that is where we're at the real effective rate for the dollar exchange. Now you can understand it's too high. We need to get that coming down to the means, which would be in the low 90s, and it's going to overshoot the means. Now we're in more debt than any nation in the history of the world. Plenty going on here. We're also throwing in crypto. So there's going to be other elements to why when this dollar corrects, a 30% minimum correction is extremely appropriate. I will not be surprised to see us go back down. If you see the orange line on the bottom there, overshoot the means and see the dollar value go into the 70s. Now, that's a really big correction. That's over 30% from here. That's the goal of the Mar-a-Lago Accord. Get this dollar exchange rate value down. Now, why would we do that? It's so we can increase manufacturing. We're encouraging investment into the United States. We make goods and services here, and then our goods can actually be exported and affordable. This is the whole plan. Now, not just bringing the dollar value down 30% in the Mar-a-Lago Accord, but their interest rates. Now, Trump, just a little history, is a negative interest rate guy, meaning he'll just go for it to stimulate the economy. Will this bring in an element of inflation? Yes, that is one downside to it. But the positive side is the economy will be so strong that we can afford the additional inflation, which is a little bit different than under Biden when we had no jobs produced. The economy was not strong. They're completely lying to you, rigged against you on the information. And we were feeling that inflation a lot more because we weren't making the wages. And that's a big part of dealing with this. Now, also where this comes in, this is where this part just gets to me partly, where bringing down the dollar value 30-40% on the Mar-a-Lago Accord, part of it. Now, exporting was too expensive. This was the problem. Trump came into office. Exporting from the United States became too expensive. Why we import everything, if you notice, and we have shrinking job market because we have a strong dollar crisis. Now, I showed you the dollar index where the real exchange rate back to the means. That's the goal here. Now, granted, what this will do is bring inflation. But this is known as when this happens, when the dollar comes down, you're going to increase, basically it equals global money supply up. And you probably heard the terms liquidity is dry out there. We don't have a lot of currency floating around right now. When we lower the dollar, it'll increase the global money supply, hence inflation. Now, with inflation, what happens the most? You're going to see asset prices rise. Now, let me just go back. We were getting inflation, even though gold is at 3,500 now and silver around 36. Rent and so forth up 300%, food. I mean, we can go on. But we were getting the inflation at a time the money supply was being just increased dramatically from COVID. Then they pulled the plug. And so we're dealing with now a real illiquid currency market. And that's why you're seeing trouble brewing. When we get into the global money supply going up, this is going to bring in asset prices. It's going to make asset prices go up. Now, what will that do? It'll inflate these asset prices, and that'll be those of gold, silver, real estate, and crypto. These will be the benefits. Will the stock market benefit? Yes. But those in the stock market will be at a fraction, a fifth probably, of the opportunity that will exist in gold and silver and real estate and crypto. Because these asset prices, when that dollar comes down 30-40%, and those rates come down, that is going to be explosive for the global money supply. Trump knows this. It brings manufacturing back to the United States. The Mar-a-Lago then creates what he talked about as a new golden era, new golden age. We will have a lot of wealth. And so when I talk about the best wealth transfer in the last 50 years, if you understood the Plaza Accord as I explained it and the timing of it in 1985, what happened then in the market system? If you know what the Mar-a-Lago is going to be doing to the monetary system, to the dollar supply, I get the inflation, but if you are in the right investments, this inflation will skyrocket your net worth and your retirement account. Why I'd be highly involved in IRAs with silver and gold. I can even get into the crypto side too. There's a balance. I get it. Real estate is good too, but the liquid stuff of silver and gold is the most valuable because it's outside the system. And don't underestimate that the great taking still isn't viable, because Trump will be extremely successful with this plan, and they are going to try to stop that. So what we're talking about here now is getting involved in this. Real estate, gold, silver, this is where the values will be during this transition. This is what the Great Reset is, what we're talking about. Global money supply is going to go up, and Bitcoin in real estate will be a big part of that. Now, take a look at this one. This is actually pretty interesting too. This is Bitcoin versus the illiquid supply. So as the money supply increases, Bitcoin rises. That's why Bitcoin's at 100,000. And that's where you see the black and the green tracking. So Bitcoin being crypto, that just gives you the picture. But what I want you to do is stay away from the idea of Bitcoin itself, because Bitcoin is not the crypto. Bitcoin is what you call a storage of value, as they say, like gold. Well, if you're going to do a storage of value, Bitcoin's not what you want because it's digital. And if we have a cyber pandemic or something in the digital realm, you lost everything. The most valuable asset you can hold is silver and gold. Right now, I'd probably stay away from gold because the silver and gold ratio is just under 100. And anytime that happens, it's time to buy silver. Let silver run to 50. When it breaks out of 50, you'll see it scream towards 100. And if you ever want to, at that point, rebalance back into gold, because gold will always be an asset you want to hold on to as it starts backing up the stable coins. The stable coins will be the new digital currencies. So when you hear from many that don't understand crypto, I'm not going to get into all of them. There's meme coins, which are just speculation. Then you have things like Bitcoin. They don't do anything. They're not utility. They don't provide a service. They're not worth investing into. It's just not worth it. You want to go into utility cryptos. Utility cryptos are the technology that will allow transactions, financial transactions, to happen from person A to person B, country A, country B. But utilities like XRP, XLM, HBAR, these transactions will happen in a split second instead of days, and it costs pennies, saving hundreds of millions and billions of dollars for the financial markets. So part of that Great Reset, not only lowering the interest rates, bringing that dollar value down 30-40%, instituting the core factor of the Mar-a-Lago Accord, you have the digital realm. Congress is working on it right now. They are going to pass crypto regulation stating what is a security, what's not, what is a stable coin. We are now ahead. We the people, for almost the first time in history, are ahead of the institutions, the money, the bankers. They couldn't go into utility cryptos really because there's no regulation. There's no guidelines. It's that new. Although the cryptos I just named have been around 10 years, they have a track record and they will be used. Larry Fink of BlackRock even said, when the regulations pass, every stock and every bond transaction will get tokenized, meaning on these blockchains. You will see even the SWIFT. All the stable coins need a bridge, meaning a crypto like XRP, for example, is a bridge. Every buy and sell transaction needs a bridge. That's where these cryptos come in. And over the next 5 to 7 years, you're going to see extraordinary values build on these platforms. So the Great Reset has multiple facets, but the fact is, we're going to increase global money supply. That is the goal here for the Mar-a-Lago Accords. That's why when I say the dollar is being orchestrated for collapse, it's not a negative like people might think. It's by design to bring back manufacturing to the United States, create tremendous amounts of wealth in these assets that are tangible, like gold, silver, real estate, crypto. You will see explosive profits and valuation way above and beyond anything the stock market can do. There's a reason Warren Buffett is sitting in $350 billion in cash. There's a reason why the big money is on the sidelines. For some reason, you, the retail people, think the stock market is the place to be. You're going to miss on the return. One thing I just want to say, don't say, well, it's not that big of a deal. It's a difference of being a millionaire in your retirement or not by being in the right asset. So this is really good stuff. It is in play now. They're doing it. This is what part of what the big, beautiful bill is about. And then they'll go ahead and get the crypto regulation passed. I get it's going to increase not only the money supply, inflation, our debt levels. That's why Elon Musk blew a gasket. But the fact is, we don't have time. We have to do this to create the economy, win the election next year, win in 2028, and then we can get serious on austerity cuts after we've had this financial boom. If we don't, we will lose this nation forever. So for those conservatives and people like Musk, you need to step back and give breathing room to President Trump. He knows what he's doing. I know it doesn't make sense, but we, the average people, will benefit tremendously by this Mar-a-Lago Accord initiative. And for those with retirement accounts, if you're in the right asset, you will be glad you're there. So until next time, God bless you.
With all of the recent changes in the political and financial markets, there has never been a better time than right now to invest in silver and gold. When governments simply print billions of dollars in paper money in hopes of solving financial shortfalls, you know that it is time to buy and hold assets of true and lasting value. Free information is available to you right now by calling 888-747-3309. Whether you are a new investor or you're interested in preserving the value of your retirement accounts, we make it easy for you to make smart decisions for your financial future. The specialists at Cornerstone are here to serve you, work to satisfy your retirement goals, and communicate with respect. Call us right now at 888-747-3309. That's 888-747-3309. Or visit us online at cornerstoneassetmetals.com. That's cornerstoneassetmetals.com.